My Little Pony is so over. Back in the day, the franchise had actual good characters and meant something. Nowadays, there's nothing new to talk about or to explore. G6 is never going to come out. The community is so dead.
To all fans and every content creator that thinks this way, you're the reason why you make me wanna faceplant myself into my desk so hard I go unconscious. Of course, there's still things to talk about in the MLP fandom, you close-minded, Okra-loving fan. Especially when the fandom is still alive and running, and the reason why G6 isn't here is because it's not done, which is normal, especially if you want to have a good story and concept. And G4 was no exception, but what happens when the studio demands a character redesign and still hates it? When fans harass you for years just because of a character, and when Hasbro themselves don't want to include your concept in the show because of fear of fans hating it. The development hell is when something or a character gets stuck in a stage where it's no longer a concept but is also not finished. And it can happen to anyone, even if you're a big studio with a lot of expectations for your new horror show. But with a Twist was a character that not a lot of people initially liked, but at one point Twist would have been a completely different character. Twist began as Twistaloo in mid-2008, she would have been Applebloom's best and only friend. Her story throughout season 1 would have been her and Applebloom beginning a club for misunderstood fillies, as well as her helping Applebloom to be more confident and outgoing despite being a blank flank. Her design would have been as a tall filly, taller than any other in her class. She would have sported messy fluffy hair with freckles, and her personality would have been confident and outgoing, but also extremely hot-headed. Right off the bat, this Twist sounds nothing like the one we saw in the show. Her personality sounds less like a bullied filly and more like a rebellious but well-meaning filly, and in a way sounds like she would have been a sister figure to Applebloom. Her design sounds interesting as she would have been one of the only fillies that would have been taller than her peers, which honestly sounds incredibly cool, but what's interesting was her overall story. The idea of her and Applebloom creating a club for misunderstood fillies sounds oddly familiar, and the idea of her teaching Applebloom how to be more confident despite how others saw her is a message I think would have been helpful for a lot of kids and adults alike. So why did they scrap it? Well, for two reasons. The HX felt that if they added another story to the show, viewers would get bored, and secondly, they felt that the viewers wouldn't care for what they felt were smaller characters. Kind of ironic when you think about it. But the concept did see the light of day with the Cuterman Crusaders. But that's not the only thing that got changed. Prior to May 2010, Twist's design was discussed with Lauren Fust, as the HX media felt that her design was weird, and that if fans saw her, they wouldn't like her. So Fust changed her design, and DHX still didn't like it. While now she was more proportionate with the other fillies, there was still one problem, her nose, and at one point DHX planned on scrapping her altogether. And if it wasn't for Sabrina Alberghetti, we never would have got Twist. Ironic because fans still didn't like her, but as hated as she was, I still find her to be a solid character, especially in the books. I think when we all think about the My Little Pony movie, with no doubt we all think of Tempest Shadow. She was such a fresh and unique concept, especially at the time when the show felt stuck and repetitive. So with such a solid concept, you'll be surprised that it didn't start that way, not even close. The concept of Tempest began on May 27, 2015. Initially beginning with the name Cosmos, she went through 19 different redesigns, which is already crazy when you think about it. But it's a trend that a lot of the movie concepts would suffer through, which inevitably delayed the project even more. And while a lot of these don't look that bad, I wouldn't choose them over the one we got. But the weirdest one has to be this one, and the reason? Because she originally was going to be a pony that had the ability to fuse different parts of other creatures into her, and I'm guessing taking the abilities of said creature. And instead of a broken horse, she would have had a staff prosthetic to focus her magic. Cool idea, but the design doesn't look that good, at least in my opinion. Although it's kinda funny that we almost got the MLP equivalent to Lockdown, but sadly these designs wouldn't stick. And then we got this one, which looks more in line with the design we ended up getting. The thing was that she was a stallion, which honestly is not that weird as it could realistically fit the character. What is weird is that he would have been Celestia's and Luna's brother, which in and of itself would raise a lot of questions, like where was he when Luna became Nightmare Moon? How his horn was broken? Why isn't he an Alicorn? Did he leave Equestria because of Luna's vanishment? Because that's another thing, he wasn't supposed to be a villain. And originally he would have been a wild pony who left Equestria and lived in the wasteland, but again, the design didn't stick, mainly for story reasons. And then got changed again and again and again, and it got to a point where Hasbro got impatient and told the crew to either choose a design and story that would go in line with the movie or to scrap the concept altogether. And remember that Tempest concept was in development for over 2 years at this point with nothing to show, so it was understandable where Hasbro was coming from. But it would be Megan McCarthy that finally finished Tempest development with one simple concept. She thought that a character who came to Equestria and didn't have the best of experiences sounded like a cool idea, basically being a parallel to our main characters. And with that, Tempest finally came into fruition, and it only took 19 redesigns, 2 years in development, and one name change later to accomplish it, which, all things considered, I say it was all worth it. Unlike... We all have different definitions of disappointing. Some say that this is disappointing and others this. And while we all have different opinions, I think we can all agree that Zephyr Breeze was a huge disappointment. Especially compared to his original concept. The first concept of Zephyr Breeze was revealed by Andrea Lipman at San Diego Comic-Con 2015. Much of this design was the same as the one we got. The only difference was his hair and personality. Instead of his man bun and messy appearance, instead we would have had a Zephyr Breeze with a loose hairstyle like the one we saw with Featherbanks, and with a very shy attitude, even more so than Fluttershy. And the idea behind that was to showcase how much Fluttershy had grown as a character, and using what she had learned at that point to help her brother. This was the initial concept, and fans adored it, so much so that not even a week after he was revealed, you had fans making fan arts and theorizing what his cutie mark would be. And fans got even more excited when Jim Miller teased that Zephyr was going to appear in Season 6. The hype was through the roof and people couldn't wait. And then the episode released, and fans were disappointed. And I can't blame them. Zephyr and Jim Miller hyped this episode so much, and at one point, even Jim Miller called this his favorite episode, just for the finished product to be a mediocre episode. So, what happened? Well, in all fairness, an attempt was made, but a very small one. Jim Miller had problems writing the episode, and more specifically, Zephyr. He felt that Zephyr Breeze was going to be just a copy of Fluttershy, and he didn't like the idea of him learning the same message as her sister. And with the deadline on the episode approaching, he grew more and more stressed out by the months. This was until Michael Vogel told Jim about his brother, who he described as a chronic slacker and freeloader, which found it very funny. This would be the catalyst for Jim to change Zephyr as a character and in design. Something that even Michael later confirmed on Twitter, with this creating the Zephyr we all know, for better or for worse, as you have fans that absolutely love him and others that despise him. But hey, at least G. Miller wasn't harassed by fans over this decision. Unlike... Starlight to me is one of the most divisive characters in the entirety of G4. Okay, one of. Some people absolutely love her and others hate her because she was a bad reformed villain. Somehow? Okay, yes, her reformation came out of nowhere, but she eventually did get better. So it might come as a surprise that Starlight almost didn't make it in the show. Starting around mid-2014, Starlight's journey began very differently from how we know her now. Beginning as a background character only called Aurora, she was planned to appear in Season 5, but later got discarded, because the crew felt that there were already too many background ponies in the show, that adding another one would be redundant. This was until one of the writers, Scott Sunburn, felt that she could be an opportunity to explore a new concept in the show. The initial concepts of Starlight showed her with wildly different hairstyles, which in all honesty didn't look that good in the first place, and her cutie mark being a circular aurora instead of her white star cutie mark, but in the end this design was chosen, which looks oddly familiar. But there's a reason for that. The original idea was to make Starlight a proto-Twilight, and a what if Twilight never moved on from a friendship. Hence, why her original colors parallel Twilight's. But there was another much bigger problem. On early 2015, Starlight's original name almost got Hasbro sued. This was because the name Aurora was trademarked by Disney, but before the lawsuit even happened, her name would be changed to Starlight. But if you think that this is where Starlight's story ended, well, you'd be wrong. After the season 5 finale, fans asked Jim Miller if Starlight would be coming back to the show, with him responding, yes, there's future plans for her. This sparked an outrage among fans, as they felt that Starlight didn't deserve to be in the show, and it wasn't a small thing. Fans made petitions, demands, and at one point harassed Jim Miller to drop Starlight in favor of Sunset, which of course didn't happen. But what makes this incident incredibly frustrating is that it wasn't up to Jim to make that decision, it was the crew's, and this hate persisted throughout the years, as well as the demands and messages towards Jim Miller, and I think his 2018 statement addressing this whole situation says everything. Our intentions wasn't to make Starlight the 7th member of the group. From our standpoint, her purpose was to have a longer arc about what it takes to earn redemption. It doesn't just happen and things are just okay. You have to work every day to achieve it, even if sometimes you fall short. That's why more often than not, she's not a full teacher at this point, because she's still growing and learning as a person. That's what I feel makes her such a great character. That's why Starlight, despite not having that bad of a development process, she is here, because she had to suffer before and after she came out, and one that continued to have scrutiny from fans for years to come. And simply, the reason why Sunset didn't come to the main show is because that's not the story she was meant to tell, it was Starlight's, and honestly, she did a great job. So we had characters that weren't supposed to be here, others that almost were scrapped, and others that look incredibly differently from how we know them now. But our final one is not just a character, but a whole species. These ones are... The sea ponies took 9 years to make. First starting as a species that we would have seen at the beginning of the show and sharing the G1 sea pony design, Lauren Faust wanted to include them because she felt that they could be a great addition to the world, but Hasbro didn't feel the same way, immediately telling Faust to drop the concept, although development didn't stop. Enter 2011, plans to bring sea ponies to season 2 began to circulate with a scrapped episode called Nothing More to See, an episode that would have been about the main six going on a vacation at the beach and discovering the tide has receded usually far, revealing part of the kingdom of the sea ponies that is drying up, and it's up to them to save them before their home is completely destroyed. This episode sounded incredibly interesting, and it would have introduced 2 new things to the show, like water magic and the introduction of the Kraken to Equestria. But ultimately was scrapped by Hasbro again, and this would persist for 5 years, where Hasbro time and time again said, we have no plans in including them in the show, and I don't think fans would like them anyways, which was especially weird in 2013 and 2014, where not only we saw the Mermaids in the comics, but also the introduction of the sirens in the lore. So what did Hasbro do? Well, for once, they acknowledged them and would tease the fans with the glorious statement, we don't have any future plans for them. And it's not like sea pony development had ended, because in the span of 8 years there were 10 pitches for a sea pony episode, over 50 different designs, and even a pitch for a scrapped comic about the sea ponies, all getting rejected faster and faster the more time passed. And at this point it seemed that the dream of seeing sea ponies in G4 had ended. This was until something happened. Call it luck, a strange coincidence, or a sign from God. Amy Larson's official website listed a season 5 episode called From Sea Pony to Shining Sea Pony. The episode never came out, nor is known if the episode even existed, but fans now believe that this was the beginning on the development of the MLP movie. And 2 years later we finally got to see the sea ponies everyone wanted, and in no other place like the big screen. 9 years in development, failed pitches and redesigns, a battle against Hasbro, and the end result? nobody cared. Call it a sick joke or bad timing, but sea ponies weren't that popular with fans or in merchandise or even in the show, especially at the time with fans hating Terramar and Silverstream for one being boring and the other one annoying. There were no many fan arts or fanfics, and it seemed that in just 1 year the sea pony hype just died. And granted, they didn't have a lot of development in the show or comics, but even when MLP tried to explore the underworld world, fans still didn't care, because it was G5. Which is a shame, because this series was a turning point for the G5 comics and improved on everything fans hated. But all this just makes me appreciate these characters and concepts even more. Say what you say about some of these characters, but it's impressive how far some of them have come, even if not all of them were popular. They were saved or developed by people who were passionate on who they would be, or in the other hand, the legacy that they would leave, which just shows us not to judge a book by its cover. But hey, this is probably just me, so what are your thoughts on these characters and their development? Leave it down in the comments, and remember to like the video and consider subscribing if you enjoyed it, and remember to join the Discord server to have a more close interaction with me. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.